Qwen from Alibaba launched their newest model called Qwen 3.8 earlier this month, and just yesterday they have made the weights open for the Qwen 3.8, the 27B variant. So in this video, I will be covering everything that you need to know about Qwen 3.8, what do they offer, and there's a model that is meant for developers that we can run locally on our machine. I will be testing it live in front of you. It is said that it is much better than the previous models when it comes to agentic coding. So that's the exact part that I'm most interested about. I'll show you step-by-step guide on how you can do it and test it live for the GitHub repos and the projects that I'm building on. So this is going to be really interesting stuff today. Without any further ado, let's jump straight into it. Let us start with the basics. First, let's understand what is Qwen 3.8 and what does it offer for us. Qwen 3.8 is a model family that got released on 3rd August, and it is having two models. The first is the Qwen 3.8 Max and the second is Qwen 3.8 27P. As you can see on this tweet, Qwen 3.8 Max is their most capable model till date, and they have released the open weights for both of them. It's available on Hugging Face, and the Max model is claiming to set a new bar for coding and co-work. I'll link the blog if you want to read in depth about it. So now let's go into the details of these two models that are there. So the Qwen 3.8 Max is having 2.4 trillion parameters, and it's a mixture of experts model. So what that means is out of these 2.4 trillion parameters, only 95 billion parameters are active, and it's meant for coding, working, research, and long horizon tasks. As you can see, this is the first time they have open sourced the weights of a Qwen Max class model. Clearly a big deal from the Qwen's team. And then it is based on the foundations of Qwen 3.5. And here you can see various benchmarks that have been performed on this model in comparison to Opus 4.8, Fable 5, Gemini 3.1 Pro, and ChatGPT 5.6 Soul. So Qwen 3.8 Max got tested on 3 challenges. And the first one was, of course, coding. They asked it to build a self-evolving harness with autonomous coding. Basically, that means there's no human help involved. It took 16 days, and this is the repository that has been created. They've mentioned the commits, PRs, and everything. So this is OMyCLI, the harness that has been built by Qwen Max. Do check that out if you're interested. And then it talks about reproducing a research paper and then improving it. They handle a research paper and they just talk about how the model has done on various tasks out there. So this is about the maths model. Now let's talk about the second model, which is Qwen 3.8 27B. This is a dense model. It is having 27 billion parameters. It outperforms 3.7 plus overall, and they are saying it shines in real world coding and office workflows. So this is something that we will be testing it live. And this is having native context of 262K, and it can be extended to 1 million tokens if required. And this model is something that has been built for developers. It is under Apache 2.0. And the best thing about this model is that we can actually run it locally on our consumer machine. So it just requires around 17 GBs of RAM. And you can see the weights are available on Hugging Face. The weights are there for the Max model, which is having 2.4 trillion parameters, and also for the 27B model. So this is the one that we will be running. And if you see the benchmarks, the number are much higher than the previous releases of Qwen. And they've also compared it to Opus 4.6 Max. All these benchmark numbers are good. But as a developer, as a builder, what matters to us is when we are running these models locally, how are they performing on my project? How are they doing on my source code? So we would be using Qwen 3.8, the 27B Q4 variant, which is going to take roughly 17 GBs of RAM. And for this experiment, I would be using LM Studio. I will share my machine's configuration. So I would be running this on an M4 Pro with 48 GBs of RAM and 1 TB hard disk. If you're new to the local LLM space, I would recommend you guys to start with downloading LM Studio. This is the LM Studio desktop app. It's available for all the operating system. And this is a perfect way to run your first local model. I'll make the steps so easy that you can follow along. So once you open the desktop app, we'll go to this section, which is model search. Here you can search all the models by their name or by their author. And I've selected the best match in here. So at the very top, you see Qwen 3.8 27B model, and it has a lot of downloads already. This was just updated 14 hours ago, and the model size is 17.7 GB. As you can see, I have already downloaded the file. So if the model is not downloaded, you will see an option like this to download it. So in my case, since it's already there, it's asking me to use a new chat. And in here, there are different quantization methods. I've selected the Q4 one, which is the recommended one for me, and feel free to pick up as per your hardware configuration. So once you have downloaded, we can click on this use a new chat. Here you can see I have to select the model from the top. So currently the model has been downloaded, but it's getting loaded. So I can select this one, and then I can just chat with it like how I chat with ChatGPT or Claude Code. The second thing is if you can come to this section, and in here you can see the Qwen 3.8 27B model is already loaded. It says it's ready, and it is running as a OpenAI compatible server. So it's running on this endpoint, and this is pretty useful if you want to plug it in OpenCode or any other harness. We can just do it directly and use it there. Here on the right, you can see different configurations out there. This and yeah, currently the context length is 8,192, but we can increase it up to 262K tokens. And this is if you want to give in a system prompt, we can see the reasoning effort is extra high and thinking is enabled by default. The temperature has been 1, and I'm leaving the remaining configs as it is. I'm not going to change them. So now we have the model ready to use. Let's try it by giving in a prompt. Let's say, what is a LLM? At the bottom of the chat, there is this thinking option. It will control whether the model will think before replying. So this is already on. And then we can play around with the reasoning effort. So currently it's running at the extra high, but you can toggle as per your preference. And then there's also a vision tag. So basically it can process the image inputs that you give. Image tag is really useful when it comes to coding because there are a lot of times when as a developer we get an error, and then we can just take a snippet and then just paste it here in the chat saying that, hey, fix this error for me, rather than copy pasting the whole error stack. So the speed is pretty good. It replied in 11 seconds. It says LLM stands for large language model, and popular examples are GPT, Claude, Gemini, and Llama. And if you see at the bottom, the token per second is 4.49, and this one took 170 tokens. So for this experimentation, we would be using OpenCode as the harness with the Qwen 3.8 model, and I will be showing you the exact steps that you need to follow. So now you have to download the OpenCode desktop app. I'll share the link in the description of the video. You can download the desktop app. Couple of things to note here is if you go to the server settings section, you can see there's this option to require authentication. If required, you can toggle this require authentication, and then you need to give in an API key. So this is the API key that we will be using in the open code. But in my case, I don't want additional authentication, so I'll just turn it off. So this is the open code desktop app. I've currently opened it in the skills repo. And here you see this option to select different models out there. If you are using OpenCode for the first time, then go to Models, click on Manage Models, and in here we have to connect the provider. So in our case, the provider is LM Studio. So since in our case there was no API key, we can just say anything we want and click on Continue. So here you see the LM Studio has been connected. If we search here for Qwen 3.8, you can see it's available across 3 providers, but it's not available via LM Studio. So for that, we need to change in a configuration. Let's do it together. So what you have to do is you have to go to your home directory and in there go to the .config folder, OpenCode folder. There will be a file called opencode.json. This is the file that we need to edit. So in here you see a provider section and there's this LM Studio provider that I've already added. So this is what you need to add. And this is the same base URL where the Qwen 3.8 model has been exposed on the local server. We have two models already there, which is from Gemma 4. So we have to add our Qwen 3.8 model in here. This is the section that you need to add in your opencode.json file. The model name that you see here has to be the exact name from the LM Studio app, and this name is something that will be visible in the model list on OpenCode. And as you can see, I've set the attachment, reasoning, and tool call to true. And the input we have mentioned image along with text because the model accept images. And this is the limit. So I've set the context limit to be 65,536 tokens. And this is the output limit, which is around 8,000 tokens. So this is what you need to add in. I'll put this whole JSON file and share it in the description of the video. And next, what we have to do is we have to make sure that this context matches with the context in LM Studio. So we will go there. On LM Studio app, we are under the developer section. We will go to load and here you can see the context length. So the context length that you have given in the OpenCode JSON file and this context length should match. So adjust it accordingly. And once you change it, you'll have to reload the model in here and then restart OpenCode to pick these changes. And now if we search for Qwen 3.8, you can see the LM Studio Qwen is also available. This is the same model that we are running locally. And in here, you can see the inputs that are accepted are text and image. It allows reasoning and 65,000 is the context. So now the setup between the open code and the local model has been done. One thing to note about context is that, as we saw in LM Studio, the model supports 262K context. But the thing is, the more the context is, the more unified memory would be used, making your machine slower. So that's the reason I'm sticking with 65,000 context, which I feel is good enough for coding task. For the experiment, I would be using my skills repo that I have open sourced. These are the three skills that I used almost daily as a content creator. So the first thing that I've done is I've asked it to install the skill creator skill from Anthropic because this is really good when it comes to working with agent skills. So the skill has been installed at the user level. And now I've asked it to analyze the source code and let me know the enhancements that could be done in the order of priority. I've asked it to take reference from popular skills repo and also refer to the guidelines from Anthropic. So this is the prompt that I have used and it is still running. It has used around 57,000 tokens and this has been running for around 2.5 hours. One thing that I noticed is the session is getting compacted again and again. This could be due to the context limit of 65,000 that we have set. So now it has done the research and it benchmarked it against the official spec, which is agentskills.io, Anthropic skills, and superpowers. And this is the enhancement plan that it has given me as per the priority. The P0 is the spec compliance, and then it has given me P1, P2, and P3. It has also suggested the order of execution. I checked it and these look pretty good. It says that add license to the skill.md file formatters, and then it talks about the version which is at the top level is not really a field. And then in the quality, it talks about adding evals to two skills that are there. Yeah, all these are the enhancements and they look pretty detailed and verbose to me. So I asked it to start with P0 to do all the items from 1 to 5 except 2 because I don't want this allowed tools to be added or removed. One thing that I want to talk about is when we are running models locally, the hardness matters as much as the model. So I'm trying it in OpenCode and then I thought Let's also try it in the LM Studio chat because last time when I gave it a prompt, the response was quick. So in the meantime, I have given in another prompt, which is to build a game, which is a clone of Mario. So let me show you how that looks. If we check in LM Studio, we can see the memory that is used by loaded models is around 21 GB, and the CPU that this model is using is fluctuating from 1% to 5%. So that's there. And this is the prompt that I've given in. I've asked it to build a Mario clone. I want the game to be functional, something that I can play on my laptop and to test once everything is done. So this is currently thinking, and I believe this has been going on for some time now. I'll let you know when this gets completed. As we saw in the open code, the session was getting compacted again and again. So I want to try once more by increasing the context length. If you see my audio and lip sync is not matching, that is because of the load that this model is putting on my machine. But you'll have to bear with me in this one. So let's increase this context length from 65,000 to 98,000. We'll have to reload to apply changes. So the model is getting loaded again. By now, you know what needs to be done. So we'll copy this context length and change it in the opencode.json file and then restart OpenCode. As you see here, this went on for 70 minutes and it was still thinking. So now let's continue on this after increasing the context length. One more thing to notice, earlier you might have seen the usage has reached close to 60%. And now after increasing the context length, the usage is just 15%. So I'm expecting it to perform well this time. Let's see. We'll have to wait for it to get completed. It seemed increasing the context limit actually helped. I didn't get the session compacted message thereafter. And if you see here, it went on and continued the task. So it created the changes that were required. And then I asked it to push it to GitHub as a PR. So it has done that as well. And I'll show you this PR. Here we are in the skills repo. Under the PRs, we see the PR number 16. This is the one that got generated by Qwen 3.8. And it talks about the P0 spec compliance that has been fixed. And if we see the file changes, this is what has changed. Basically, it has changed the license and the compatibility thing in all the files. It has added pre-commit and a validate shell script as well. Now, the next thing that seems logical to do is to get this PR reviewed by Codex, because as we know, when it comes to reviews, Codex is pretty good at it. So let's do that. I wish I could have changed the context length earlier to make it a lot faster for me, but never mind, everything is a learning. We learned during this experiment that how the context length plays an important role. I hope it's useful to you. If you're enjoying the content so far, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And I help founders and individuals in leveraging AI in their business. So if you are somebody who needs help in knowing where to put AI to actual use, then drop me an email. I'll mention the email in the description of the video. Tell me what you are building and how I can help you. Here you see I asked ChatGPT 5.6 Tera to review the PR and it came up with two issues. It says these needs to be fixed before merging. It's talking about the validation, which is only local, and the repo should have GitHub Actions enabled. And the second issue is it tells us that skill ref runs whatever version is current at the commit time. So it's asking us to pin this repo and then use that pinned version in the CI. So after getting that review comment from Codex, I again asked Qwen 3.8 to check the PR, to check if it sees any issues with it. And you will be surprised to know that it says that since the repo has no GitHub Actions workflow, this validation runs locally. It's not enforced on PR. It's asking us if we want it to be implemented on the server side. So I'm very happy that this model was able to recognize its gap itself, and yeah, it just makes me super happy. In spite of the fact that ChatGPT was able to identify a couple of gaps, I really liked the output quality. I liked how the model went into depths when searching for resources on skills across the internet, and then how it came up with all the enhancements in the priority order. Also, implementation wise, I liked how it implemented stuff. So, overall, I feel this is one of the best models in the open source space that I have tried till now. And I'm so happy that open source space is making it possible to run these local LMs on consumer hardwares, like on our personal laptops. So I would love for you guys to try this out, install it today, and let me know what you think about it. Unfortunately, the Mario clone that I was creating is still running. It is not yet completed. So I won't be able to show you the end results in this one. I'll create a short form video on it if you're interested. In doing this whole experiment, it took me roughly 5 hours. I know that's a lot of time, but I wanted to do it. I wanted to try it for a hands on coding task rather than just some one off task. I hope it was useful. If it was, make sure you subscribe to my channel, share it with your friend, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.